How does a single family climb out of obscurity to rule the world? Not with armies, but with a financial invention that still shapes our world today. What if I told you the blueprint for modern wealth, the very DNA of our financial system, was written over 600 years ago, not in a treaty, but in the dusty ledgers of one family? This is the story of the Medici. It's the story of the blueprint for wealth and power they created, a blueprint copied by the elite for centuries. They were the great patrons of the Renaissance, the godfathers of high finance, and the puppet masters of popes and kings. Their story isn't just a history lesson, it's a masterclass in power, ambition, and the timeless truth that whoever controls the money controls the world. We're going to dissect their three-generation strategy, from the quiet genius who built the machine, to the ruthless statesman who weaponized it, to the magnificent patron who turned wealth into an immortal legacy. So stick around, because understanding the Medici blueprint isn't just about understanding the past. It's about seeing the hidden architecture of power that's all around us today. Section 1. The architect Giovanni's vision. To get the Medici Revolution, you first have to get the world they were born into. 14th century Florence was humming with opportunity but crippled by risk. It was a city of merchants and artisans, a hub of global trade. But commerce had a very physical, very dangerous problem. Money was heavy. The world of finance was just as treacherous. The Catholic Church forbade usury, lending money at interest, calling it a mortal sin. This pushed lending into the shadows, into the hands of loan sharks charging crippling rates that trapped people in debt. Banking was a dirty word, tied to exploitation and moral corruption. Into this chaos steps Giovanni de Bicci and Medici in 1397. Giovanni wasn't a flashy man. He was described as cautious, prudent, and intensely private. He didn't seek the spotlight, he sought an edge. And he found it by solving the two biggest problems in finance: risk and reputation. He didn't invent all the tools he used, but he was a master at assembling them into a ruthlessly efficient system. His first key move was to master and institutionalize a game-changing accounting innovation: double-entry bookkeeping. While it was developed earlier in other Italian city-states, the Medici Bank adopted it to create a clear, real-time picture of its financial health. For every transaction, there were two entries, a debit and a credit. Assets equals liabilities plus equity. It sounds simple, but it was a revolution in information. For the first time, a business owner could see exactly where money was coming from, where it was going, and which parts of the business were actually profitable. It was like switching from a blurry sketch to a high-definition photograph. This system allowed the Medici Bank to manage its vast operations with incredible accuracy, building a reputation for absolute reliability. This wasn't just accounting, it was the birth of financial strategy. His second, and arguably more transformative move, was to help standardize and expand the use of the letter of credit and the bill of exchange. This was Giovanni's answer to the danger of moving physical gold. The concept was genius. A merchant in Florence wanting to buy wool from a trader in London no longer had to send a chest full of gold florins on a perilous journey. Instead, he could deposit his gold at the Medici Bank in Florence. The bank would issue a letter of credit, a piece of paper he could send to his partner in London. The London partner would then take that letter to the Medici branch there and withdraw the same amount in local currency. Suddenly, money wasn't a physical thing to be hauled across the continent. It was an idea, an entry in a ledger that could move at the speed of a courier. The bank made its profit not by charging sinful interest, but by charging fees for currency exchange, a clever loophole that's the foundation of modern banking fees. By building on these systems, Giovanni created one of the most powerful and resilient international banking networks of its era, placing his family at the very heart of European commerce. He was the quiet architect, the man who built the financial engine his descendants would soon drive to unimaginable heights of power. Section 2. The Godfather, Cosimo's Empire. When Giovanni died in 1429, the Medici Bank was a major financial power. But it was his son, Cosimo de Medici, who would turn that wealth into absolute control. If Giovanni was the architect, Cosimo was the empire builder. He was more ambitious and politically savvy than his father, seeing the bank not as an end in itself, but as a tool for political domination. Cosimo took the financial machine he inherited and immediately started upgrading and weaponizing it. He expanded the branch network his father started, setting up offices in every major European hub: Milan, Venice, Geneva, London, Bruges. This network wasn't just a series of banks. It was probably the most sophisticated intelligence-gathering operation in Europe. From his desk in Florence, Cosimo got constant updates from his branch managers on political plots, crop failures, and the shifting fortunes of kings across the continent. Knowledge is power, and Cosimo had the best information network money could buy. Cosimo's most strategic move was landing the most valuable client in the world, the papacy. The Catholic Church was a sprawling, international corporation with a massive cash flow problem. Cosimo solved it. The Medici Bank became the official bankers to the Vatican. This partnership was astoundingly profitable. The Rome branch, which followed the Pope wherever he went, was the engine of the bank, generating a massive portion of its total revenue. But the real value wasn't just the money. Being God's bankers gave the Medici unmatched prestige. Kings and cardinals across Europe who wanted to be in the Pope's good graces suddenly needed a Medici bank account. The bank could even delay a bishop's appointment until his family's debts were paid, a subtle but immense form of leverage. With this financial and political capital, Cosimo set his sights on controlling his home city of Florence. But he did it with a terrifyingly effective subtlety. He almost never held the city's top office. He kept up the illusion of the Florentine Republic while systematically taking it apart from the inside. He ruled not by the sword, but by the ledger. His method was civic patronage, a harmless-sounding term for a brilliant system of control. He used the bank's resources to give loans to his friends and financially ruin his enemies. Business owners, politicians, and mercenary captains all became dependent on Medici credit. When his rivals, the Albizzi family, got threatened by his influence and had him exiled in 1433, it was a fatal mistake. Cosimo's money was so deeply tangled in the city's economy that his absence nearly bankrupted Florence. A year later, he was recalled by popular demand, returning not as a disgraced exile, but as the city's undisputed master. He had proven that the real power in Florence wasn't in the Palazzo Vecchio, the seat of government, but in the Medici Bank next door. He was the Godfather, the first modern political boss who ruled through a web of debts and favors. He had perfected the second stage of the blueprint, turning financial power into unchecked political control. The way the Medici fused money and influence is a masterclass in strategy. If you're finding this breakdown of how power really works fascinating, take a moment to support Wealth Saga by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. We uncover the financial strategies and historical lessons that the powerful have used for centuries, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Section 3. The Patron Lorenzo's Cultural Dynasty. When Cosimo died, the mantle of power eventually passed to his grandson, Lorenzo, a man who would go down in history as Il Magnifico, the Magnificent. Lorenzo inherited a mature system of power, but he added the third and final layer to the Medici Blueprint, turning wealth and political power into a lasting cultural dynasty. Lorenzo understood something deep about power. For it to be truly secure, people must not only obey it, they have to admire it. Under Lorenzo, the Medici Bank actually began a slow decline, partly due to mismanagement and his own lavish spending. But Lorenzo's genius was making this decline look like a golden age. He used the family fortune not just to control politicians, but to commission the greatest art the world had ever seen. This wasn't just about personal taste. Lorenzo's patronage was a calculated political strategy. He sponsored artists like Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Botticelli, effectively putting them on the Medici payroll. He funded magnificent chapels and libraries. By doing this, he achieved several goals at once. First, he beautified Florence, turning it into the epicenter of the Renaissance and tying his family's name to the city's glory forever. The art he paid for was a kind of public relations, a constant visual reminder of Medici generosity and sophistication. First, Giovanni's innovations. That double-entry bookkeeping system the Medici mastered is the foundation of all modern accounting. Every public company, every small business, every nation uses this method to understand its finances. The letters of credit the bank helped popularize evolved directly into the instruments that fuel trillions of dollars in global trade every day. When a company in the US buys goods from a factory in China, the transaction is often secured by a letter of credit, a direct descendant of the Medici system. Next, think about Cosimo's fusion of finance and politics. The Medici model of a holding company, a central entity controlling a network of branches, is the exact structure used by today's multinational banks. A global bank like JP Morgan or HSBC, with offices in London, Tokyo, and New York, is running a scaled-up version of the Medici network. More importantly, that murky, symbiotic relationship between high finance and government is a direct echo of Cosimo's deal with the papacy. The concept of too big to fail, the revolving door between Wall Street and Washington, and the immense lobbying power of financial firms are all modern versions of the Medici strategy. The idea that a bank could be so tangled up with the state that its failure would threaten the whole system was real in Cosimo's Florence, just as it was in the 2008 financial crisis. Finally, Lorenzo's use of cultural patronage. Today, we call it philanthropy, and it's a cornerstone of modern power. When billionaires build museums, fund universities, or launch massive charitable foundations, they are following Lorenzo's playbook. Cosimo Medici weaponized that machine, using it to capture a state without firing a single shot. And Lorenzo the Magnificent gave that power an immortal soul, clothing it in the incredible art of the Renaissance. They showed that the greatest empires are often built not on battlefields, but on balance sheets. But here's the key takeaway: the Medici Blueprint isn't just history. It's a living strategy. It teaches us that wealth isn't just about having money, it's about leverage. It's about understanding that financial systems, political influence, and cultural narratives are all connected. The world still runs on the operating system the Medici designed. By understanding their blueprint, you can begin to see the hidden architecture of power all around you. If this journey into the heart of power was valuable to you, show your support by liking this video and sharing it. And make sure you subscribe to Wealth Saga and turn on notifications, because in our next video, we're going to explore how another legendary family, the Rothschilds, took the Medici Blueprint and perfected it for the modern age.